Alrighty, we're back. Moving on from the tracks. Going to be working on the 22 step. I think we just finished like 22A or something. This is 22B. Um, so, and what I want to go over really, first and foremost, is how a good way to cut or snip these pieces off, because it's a real good piece to show. And you can see we've got it's pretty substantial stuff to describe off. And I do believe like all of this is going to be like external to the model. So we're going to really want to get in there real well. Some of these pieces though, like I think this is going to be, or wait, yeah, this is all the internal stuff. And there's some notes on the page that I'll go over real quick. So those are the points we're going to need to scribe down pretty well, and want to make sure that what's happening is sometimes when you get like two pieces that go together like this that are flush, you're going to want to maybe even scribe a little bit on the inside where the points are connecting, because sometimes just snipping that thing off could throw a little bit of you might be able to hear that. There's kind of a little bit of a ridge in there. So just kind of flatten it. You don't need a lot. Like I said, we do like 20 scrapes, instead of one, because we don't want to gouge the plastic. That stuff's soft. So, but really, these pieces will go together pretty easy. And we'll build onto the side here. But I want to go into depth a little bit about how, just kind of a little quick tip on how I cut these pieces off. So it's this large piece here and the smaller piece here. This will be on the outside, and this is actually going to be inside, kind of hidden. So it's real easy here on this piece. I'll show you. You see how the connector here and here, and then there's a connector here and here, and how those just look different, how you're looking at them. And if I flip them over, you'll see that those pieces now look like what these pieces did, and these now look like what those did. So my suggestion when you're snipping these pieces is to hold it. You flip them back and forth, but hold it the same way for each cut. So what you want is this not to be on the top, not to be facing you. So like, don't cut these pieces off like that. Cut them when they're like this, and go from underneath so that you can see what you're snipping at. All right. And then snip. You'll find it a lot easier. And then just go ahead and flip this over real quick and up from the bottom and snip those off. Like all these pieces here, these three, you're going to want to flip over, but you can snip this one off from the bottom. And now this, and this, we're going to just flip it over. I know it's like, oh my God, this is a lot of work. But sorry about that, I hit the mast. But you're going to get a cleaner cut, or snip, scissor, whatever you want to call what I'm doing. It's just going to come out better. And unfortunately, like this piece, you got to flip it over back and forth to do that. But it's going to give you a better cut. You won't have to scribe down so much. So you can see like this piece, it's almost all of them are the same orientation. And then that last one, you flip it over. And you just get, I think you get a better cut. You get less to scribe off. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to clean these off camera. It's pretty boring. They're really easy to scribe. Just like I said, you don't want to try to get everything off at once. Just take your time, go with the scriber. But what I want to point out and on the instructions is, because this assembly's special. You'll see here, I think I talked about this before, where they say like don't glue these like clamshell pieces together, but I'm saying I'm gonna glue them together. You glue the floor plates together, then glue it onto one side, and then there's actually, this is new. It's got the little paintbrush. So what they're saying is that this could be like a paint sub-assembly. So if you're going to want to paint this, you're not going to want to glue this on right now, because what you'll be doing is you're going to be painting, and like the floor is going to be there right underneath, and you're going to be painting this, and you don't want this other side glued on. You're not going to be able to paint that. But if you're like me and can't paint worth a darn, you don't really care, because you're going to paint that, or you're going to glue that clamshell together. So, but just if you want to paint this interior, if you want to have the clamshell doors being able to open and close, when you get down to it's 22F, the other side that you made up here in 22B, you don't want to glue it, because you're going to have a real hard time painting this thing, because these clamshell doors are going to have to be together if you glue that, because you won't be able to get them in, because they sit and they've got piston and they're going to sit inside. So once you glue that on, these doors, you'll be able to open them to get in there and paint. You'll be able to go to paint from the top, but they're going to be on. So it's just kind of something to draw your attention to. So I'm just going to glue these up, scrape them down, glue them up, and finish the floor here in a minute. Thanks for watching. All right, as you see, I got those two pieces there. They're gluing, drying, got some clothespins on them. Try to help that. And so we're going to move on to 22C, which is part of the flooring. So there's a big piece here on the F sprue and a smaller piece here, number 2 on the F sprue. So let's get those cut out here. And get these gluing together. And there's also a piece on, it was the E sprue. So we'll find the other sprue set here. I'm going around making sure we're sticking to how we cut these things out, because it's also pretty important to cut them well, because this is some thin plastic here, and like here especially, you're cutting kind of along the same axis as the plastic part. So what I usually do is don't try to cut it straight up and down like that. Try to cut against the plastic over here, just not up and down. It's hard to see, I'm sorry. But kind of cut across the plastic, so you don't, because if you cut it like this, you might actually cut some of that part. But if you cut it kind of catty corner like that, you're less likely to snip a chunk of the actual piece of the model off. So we're also looking for E4 here. And that should be this part. This is E. And there's 4, okay. Some thick connection points there. So this is like that, and this goes under it. All right, maybe we need the instructions. That does help sometimes. Oh, I see. This kind of goes in there. You can see how that fits in. Okay, so there's some divots, so that'll fit quite nicely in there. Maybe? Wow, okay, there we go. Okay. And then this should... Oh, wow. So, yeah, that big piece doesn't actually come into contact. So there's going to be a gap there between the floor plates. Alright, so that's a trick. So these two pieces you probably want to glue together first and make sure they're good and glued. Then this whole thing actually only attaches here. So I mean, you'll be able to put glue, there's my little pointy, you'll be able to put glue all around the ridge here to get a good solid connection. But that's all that this will hold on to. This piece doesn't actually touch this floor plate. So I would say glue this boy together, let it sit for 30 minutes, get it nice and glue, and then attach it, and attach just this part really to the floor plate. This part will not touch any of this piece at all once it's been glued. So I would do this first, let it get nice and glued up. I might even drop a little bit of glue in there to help, because yeah, that's tricky. So this is all that's going to be glued together, so you're going to not want to pinch this. That's a trick. And so we also want to go over again, because you're going to be scraping pretty thin. I mean, you can bend this pretty easily. It's a thin piece of plastic, so you don't want to take much off at a time. Make sure you're gentle. Just want to get that smoothed off. Make sure there's nothing sticking out that could come into play later when you're trying to glue this. Sometimes you can snip off a large piece that may have been left hanging around. Alright, so I'm going to just glue these, and I'll be back later after we get them glued together. And when I go to put the two bottom underside carriage together, when I go to glue it to the floor plate to help you guys out if I find anything awkward. I think I will. Might have to I don't know, maybe put something in between here so it doesn't collapse. It's a very strange piece there. So be back in a bit. And I know some other pieces coming. There's a back plane to all of this. So get that on here. Tear it out and get it the mold line off while this is gluing. Actually, I might have to hold this. So I really want to make sure that this gets in pretty solid. Kind of have to pinch this down, pinch that down. So while this is gluing, I'll go ahead and turn it off. There is a F9 that will be gluing onto the back, as well as F10 and F11, which are the clamshells. And once again, we'll be gluing those on as well. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back. So this is glued up real nice, really solid, like it. And I've got the clamshell pieces here. They've all been scribed down, sanded a little bit. couple of spots need a little bit of sanding, a little extra help. And what's really nice is these pins sit in real secure. So I'm just gonna, so I'll be able to glue them later. I'll be able to put glue along this ledge here and just hold that down, and pretty much the same here. Be able to glue up this edge and just hold it down. So I'll be able to operate these even with the other side glued in, and kind of make sure everything's finished off nicely, because I saw there was a little bit of extra left over here after I scribed it down first, so I got the sander out. So that's really cool. I actually won't glue the pins. I'll wait to glue them after I'm done. So right now it's basically just slide the other piece on and make sure it's glued up and hold it down. And it should just take a minute here. Get a little glue there. Glue on here. All right. Okay. And I'll just sit here and hold it for a little bit, and I'll be right back. Almost forgot F9. That just slides in the back here. It should be easy if you've done the same thing I did and kind of forgot about it. There's really not much to even glue this to back here, so you'll be able to kind of spread that and get them in there, even if you got some glue in. So just glue up these edges. A little bit of glue in the slot. That should do it. Make sure you get the door and everything on the right side. There we go. So I'll just hold these two pieces together for a while, and I think that's it. That's all. And if you wanted to paint this, remember, don't glue in this second side. Just let it sit. You'd probably be able to glue this F9 to the one side if you wanted. I think that would hold still pretty good, because you've got some space on the bottom here. In fact, I think I might go ahead and drop a little bit of glue in there, see if that, get some glue action going in there. So you'd be able to hold that pretty well, just the one side and the bottom, while you have this other side unglued and not in, if you want to paint all that inside. I do not. So, but it's pretty cool to be able to see inside there. But it's just not for me. So we'll move on. I think the next part, while this is gluing, let's see. There's a top that goes onto this too. So yeah, if you're painting, just leave the top off for now. There's a F8. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on the top of this thing. This is what we'll be working on next. All this, you'd be able to, I would say, like, kind of put this together. This F1, I think that's just one piece, and then you can glue. Well, this says do not glue, so don't glue that. I guess it's going to be a turret. Then you glue the pieces on top. Just don't glue it onto here, especially if you're going to paint. So, alrighty, so this is F8. It's like a little light, I guess. So you want the light down, and you open up, you can just see in there. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. That's going to glue down, and then in F1 is going to sit like right on top. Whoa, excuse me. Yeah, so that sits right on top. Looks pretty good. You'll see there's a big gap there, but that's because this has to kind of roll around. So, but there's going to be a gap here and like all across this. It's going to be like hairline. So, the trick is to get enough glue in there, and there's that's a big gap. We'll have to fill that in. But on this side, it's not too bad. A little there. Actually, looks like it's kind of high above that. And there's no way to squeeze that in any more than it already is. So we'll have to get some fill in there. But other than that, it looks pretty easy. So if you're, if you're gonna paint, and you'd almost like get this all painted now, and then come back in later, paint that, glue that down, and glue this down, because you'll actually have to paint like this here, because you're going to see that when you open the clamshell doors. So yeah, I don't know too many people are going to be painting that, but if you do, yeah, don't glue this in. You got to get this painted. But we're going to go ahead and glue that all in there. Get that in the right place. Yeah, you want to make sure that's in the right place, because that'll be a big mess. Because this isn't going to fit right. You'd almost wonder. Ooh. So that's an option that I'll probably do, because it seems to fit much nicer. There's still a gap here. That seems like a much better fit. So F8, you're out of here. Don't need you. Cool. So yeah, so that's the cab is all done. Got that back piece glued in there. Even if you weren't going to paint it, I'd definitely put it in there, because that really kind of solidifies things. So now I just gotta get that puppy on there, and then there's some other. Ooh, there's a C piece. All right. So get to working on that here in a minute. All right. So we've had this gluing for a while. I think taking that F8 out really helped. It's really looking nice. Probably just do a little sand and just put a bead of glue across that, and it'll come out real well. Now, C8 and F12 are interesting. So, because you want C8 here, it's going to sit right here. And you don't want to glue that. You want it to be able to move. But F12, you're going to want to glue. But you don't want to glue it to C8, because then it won't turn anymore. So you got to look. You got to put glue along the edge. Like, all right. What can I use? There we go. Put the glue like along here. Just on these edges here. And then let's see, where does it sit? Does it sit? No. Okay. So you might want to be able to put a bead of glue here as well, and around the hatch. And here as well. To get that glued in there real well. Because there's going to be, I'm guessing, some bolters or something. some heavy bolters there. So, and like nothing in the front here. You want that. Yeah, there's nothing for it to glue to. So you're going to want to make sure C8 is in there and this flat part is in the front. And then F12, figure out where those glue spots are. It's going to be along here and along the back and then here on the edge. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Handy dandy plastic glue. I really don't know for sure where it's going to touch on the tank itself for sure, so we'll just leave that without any glue on there. I'm not going to push down on that. I think I'm going to cheat. Drop a little bit of glue in there on that side, right along there. Kind of cheat that glue in there. Yeah, so. All right, then just hold